we're going to move into the next part of the conversation now. Chewy will join us when he can. I want to show you a conversation that Piers Morgan had with two guests at the end of last week. The first guest is a guy called Corey Lewandowski. Now, I'm not going to show you too much of Corey Lewandowski. I'm just going to show you a very short clip. It's less than 60 seconds. Corey Lewandowski is in my honest hell belief, in my opinion, a scumbag Trump sycophant who lied. I think he pushed someone in a what's it called? Like a convention last year, and that's when the Trump people let him go. Could be wrong there, but not a very nice man. But Trump's pulled him back in again to work with him. And I'm really just playing you this to show you something so that in the next clip, you can see as to why Piers Morgan brought the wrong people on today. So he's talking to Corey Lewandowski. The particular part I want you to hear about this is why Trump and Kamala Harris have never met. Right? This is what we're looking at.
This debate is going to be massive, as the last one was. The last one was historically consequential. Joe Biden pulled out after it because he was so useless in that debate. And it was
like, even the setting of that, we talk about how he frames it, to say that Joe Biden was useless. It's just an interesting terminology to use about a, president. I understand colloquialism might be accurate, but the framing of something with these people, it's always set up. Like I wouldn't imagine he'd ever use the word useless about Donald Trump. He was so useless, and he wouldn't say that, but he said it about Biden. Now, I kind of agree he was pretty useless, but coming from someone who's hosting it, that's where you see the framing.
Embarrassing to watch. How's Donald Trump going to play it against Kamala Harris? They've never debated before. It seems to me that since Biden quit, Trump has slightly struggled to work out the best way to attack Kamala Harris. Well, for 90 minutes, it's him and her. Has he worked out the correct strategy, do you think?
Well, Piers, what's amazing is that these two individuals have never met. That goes to show you just how ineffective she was.
They've never actually met.
Look, I think the only time they've ever been in the same room is when she attended the State of the Union speeches that he delivered when he was the president. That goes to show how ineffective she's been as a U.S. senator. No interaction in bipartisan negotiations on a number of major issues, including providing the largest tax cut in American history. She was nowhere to be found.
So that's all I'm going to play from that, because then coming up after him is a guy called Tim Miller. Tim Miller is an interesting cat because he's a former Republican who left the party over Trump. I guess he's still probably conservative, but he runs a podcast called The Bulwark. And this is a bit like with Brian Tyler Cohen the other day. He has asked the wrong person on. Now, I guess he's asked the right person on for getting clicks, but for actually explaining why the last guest was a moron and how Piers Morgan has no journalistic integrity, Tim lays it out for him.
You were listening to that. What did you make of it?
Piers, I got to tell you, that was one of the most absurd interviews I've ever had to watch in my life, and I just can't even believe that I had to sit through it. I just took a couple notes here. Donald Trump was tough standing up to Xi Jinping. Really? He totally folded to Xi Jinping during COVID, did nothing to try to push back on him at all. Donald Trump really behind the scenes cares about what the right things to do are, that he's a listener, that he listens to people. This is just ridiculous. We all know him, that his biggest flaw is that he's a perfectionist. I mean, do you read his bleats? He doesn't even spell things correctly. But the most
interesting watching the smirk on Piers Morgan's face, you wonder if he goes, this will be getting picked up. This will get me good coverage. I'm wondering, and this is one of the things about Piers Morgan. He's no longer a journalist, right? This is shock jock stuff, and I'll give you evidence of him no longer being a journalist next.
Most important thing I want to pick on is that little exchange you had about, oh, it's so surprising they've never met. Do you know why Trump and Kamala Harris have never met, Piers? Have you thought about it for a second? Do you know why they really haven't met?
Like, as a journalist, did you feel like going one layer down? If you're a journalist, did you investigate?
Tell me.
Because he was a toddler and he threw a temper tantrum after he lost a fair election. And for the first time in America since the Civil War, we did not have a peaceful transfer of power. We did not have a ceremonial transfer of power where the former president, like a man, goes and stands on the stage and greets the next incoming president, where he helps the incoming team with the transition, where the vice president's team meets with that didn't happen last time because Donald Trump attempted a coup and he had a temper tantrum and he flew home to Mar-a-Lago just to go golfing,
all of which
hang out with the Cougars on the pool.
To be clear, all of which.
And Piers Morgan now comes out thinking that him saying that he spoke out against it means that he's got a clean soul over this. Saying I agree with you and I said all those things doesn't actually mean you're doing your job as a journalist.
So
That's what happened. That's why they haven't met.
Well, just
because
to
he
be
tried a coup.
Well, to be clear, at the time I heavily criticised him for all the things you've just said, but that doesn't explain why.
Okay, sure, but Corey Lewandowski comes on your show and he's like, "Oh, Donald Trump and Kamala haven't met."
Well, hang on.
Oh my goodness!
No,
wow, that's so interesting. They haven't met, and then Corey's over there saying it's because Kamala was ineffective as a senator.
It doesn't.
No, it's because Donald Trump was supposed to be a deal maker. Didn't meet with any of the Democratic senators. He said he was going to be the art of the deal man, but he didn't try to actually do any deals. All he did was insult people on Twitter, and then after he lost to Kamala Harris, fair and square, and Joe Biden, he didn't have the dignity. But why have a transfer of power for the first time in American history?
I've just said I agree.
Shameful.
I've just said
embarrassing. He's an embarrassment.
I've just said I agree with you. So let's park that to one side.
Well, but you didn't say it to Corey. You didn't challenge Corey. It was a very chummy interview. I know you want to get Trump on the show.
But it was very
you won't even let him off the road.
Ours can be chummy too.
So there you go. So another syndicated moment where we say he's asked the wrong people on. True, I'm just going to keep going because this next bit's actually really short. I just want to give you guys evidence. Right now, I'm just going to show you the imagery. Have you watched this, Chewy? This is the Martha Fiona, the real woman. Look at the set. Look at the setup. Look at his wearing. How many dozens of staff he'd have for doing this, right? Like there'd be dozens of people working on the show. This is no longer a show that has journalistic endeavors. I'm going to show you a question from this interview that he does. So for you guys who have seen Baby Reindeer, this is the woman who they say is the real stalker, right? And she gets on his show. And I'm going to show you one question. They're talking about drinks. And did you get any free drinks in real life? And this is what they say.
It says in the show that you proceeded to return to the same pub time and again, but you never paid for a drink.
I don't drink alcohol. And
did you pay for anything that you had in the pub?
Lemonade or soft drink?
Would he give you free drinks? Or?
No, absolutely not. This is sort of a depiction of me as a pauper who wouldn't stand around or stand a drink. It's nonsense.
So, very quick question, yeah? Just showing that little comment. Now, what I want to do is take you to a no nothing, no funded, no anything internet dude, right? He did his due diligence and he went and investigated the claims. Piers Morgan has a team behind him and they didn't do enough research to find out what this internet sleuth found out in minutes, right? So she's just said, I didn't pay for any drinks. You'd think if you were setting up this interview, which was a world exclusive, which was one of the most important interviews, you'd do a bit of research. You'd track down some stuff that this woman said on her social medias. Piers Morgan did none of that. Internet sleuths, check this out.
As well.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
Is it nonsense, though? Let's check out some of your Facebook posts and put it to the test. Now I understand why they say never accept a free lunch. In my case, free tea. Moving to London, biggest regret of my life. Please consider if thinking coming here. I was in Richard Gadd company at the Arms, which he often gave me free drink. Gadd stayed at a pub. He only worked at 1 or 2 days a week, paid cash in hand. He says he was stalked so bad his life was ruined. But he never left the pub and he constantly gave me free drinks. Okay, so there's our first lie exposed.
So, internet sleuth, no budget, no nothing, bit of time to look up her socials, found the answer that Piers Morgan on his show with dozens of people working on it, probably multiple researchers, wouldn't do. It couldn't be clearer that Piers Morgan's show is no longer a journalistic show, right? It's a bit like Plunkett. There is no longer journalism happening in that show. There is shock jock, there is talkback, there is interviews, there is no journalism going on. And I've just shown you an example in real time with those two guests, Corey Lewandowski and Tim Miller, and then shown you the evidence that they do no work, the most basic research they don't do when they've got a big interview coming up. And that's what I wanted to show people. Chewy, welcome to jump in. Your thoughts?
Maybe there's a mole in Piers Morgan's team who is saying that he's doing the research and he's just not doing the research, or he's just pulling guests that are just going to put Piers on the ropes and not let him off. Like, what was the guy's name? Tim. There's people in the comments
Tim
saying
Miller.
that he's Republican. Yeah, there's people in the. I'm not familiar with the guy, but
He
people
was
in
a
chat saying
he's
that he's a Republican.
No.
as
He
well.
was a Republican. He was also a communications guy for Jeb Bush. So he was in the system. I think it was
Okay.
2016 after Trump got voted in, and what he started doing, he rescinded his membership. So he's more of an independent now, but it would be fair to say he sits more on the conservative side, but he's not a Republican at the moment.
I just love seeing someone calling it what it was, the absolute fucking coup and a failure of decades and decades and decades of the transfer of power of the American democratic process is a huge thing. Like they hold it up and they say very few countries have had the peaceful transfer of power for as long as the US have had. And Trump broke that. He caused a coup. Like, why is it even an option?
Yeah.
Why is he there? It should be a fucking landslide.